Skirin, Didigi, Olor. Did I do okay? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So my colleague, Ilbai, if you'd raise your hand. Some of you may know him. He's pretty active here at TBN. It's because of him that I'm here today, and I want to tell a brief little story about how we met and how that relates to you. So about 10 years we met, and I was doing a presentation on value proposition, often called here the elevator speech. And over time we got to know each other. And sometime we were at lunch, coffee, I can't remember, dinner, my house, his house. He said to me this wonderful business credo. I think it's fabulous. I use it all the time. So when I was coming here, it's perfect, right? You guys speak Turkish. And more importantly, it's about the mentality that small businesses, I think, often too much are embedded in. Here's just a sampling that was on the TBN website. It does not represent every single company. And these are buckets that I used. They're not necessarily accurate. It was quick. What's common here? Almost everybody here is a small business, not all. So together, I want to change your mindset a little bit and get you thinking like a medium or even better, a big size company. 2 parts. I want you to think long term. So I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions that are big that you're not going to actually do tomorrow. And then the second part is the next 30 days. Real specific tips to change the way you do business so that you can improve your business. Problem. Everybody is great at hammering a nail. A lot of small businesses buy bigger hammers and hammer the nail even harder. But are they focusing on the customer, the people? And more importantly, I believe the message. If you can't share your message in a way that's succinct, that other people will want to buy, other people want to make referrals, testimonials, what kind of business are you in? Now, some of you might say, what's a value proposition? To me, it's a very short statement, preferably 10 words or less, that communicates very clearly what the value is. Expand United States. We help businesses accelerate their success in the United States. I can give you lots and lots of examples. It's not easy. That's why this is a strategic example. So it's a combination of heart, passion, a little bit about what Soraya talked about, the because, the why, and more important about the business. You'll see it in the center. The second set of circles are strategic tools, sales tools that generally are, for most companies, the primary source of building business. But some of you out here are personal services, home, finance, insurance, spa, granite, marble. So Facebook might be yours. Pinterest, there's a couple of salon owners. Pinterest probably is. That's very much tuned towards women. So you got to think about what's the right message map to communicate your value proposition. Next, please. Think differently. These are very common, the top. The example that I have, that non-traditional, is actually my company. I met a lawyer that grew up in the Soviet Union, now is in Alexandria. 60% of his business comes from former Soviet Republic countries, 40% local. I loved what he did in his presentation. He told a very funny story about mother-in-laws. I laughed, got a chance to meet him afterward. We set up coffee. I started to learn about his business. He helps businesses not just with legal, but how to establish a foothold in the United States and to do it well. How does he do that? With a partner of his. We're just about ready to ink a deal. So would you ever think that an attorney is going to partner with a communications marketing firm? Me, not in a million years. So what can you do differently? By having great partner channel strategies, you're going to grow your referrals and you're going to grow your business, because great channel strategies mean solid referrals from trusted partners. Those of you that have B2C, the first 2 are really business-to-consumer kind of suggestions. Most people do not ask for referrals. It's a great way of growing your business and also challenging. It's just not in our nature to say, excuse me, can you refer me to someone so I can sell them? It takes time. So if you already have a great relationship, especially the business-to-business, ask happy customers. How many of you have recommendations in your LinkedIn profile? How many have more than 10? More than 20? Not many. LinkedIn recommends more than 10 to have a complete 100% profile. They're not hard, especially if somebody says, great job. What do you think people do when they search for an individual? They look at someone's LinkedIn profile. For most of you, LinkedIn will be the absolute first link on any search engine there is, because there's over 200 million people. What does that LinkedIn profile say about you? And your website and all those other touch points. Next, please. This is definitely a strategic tip, is get your social media in order. If you're not familiar with the icons, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, SlideShare, blog, LinkedIn, and website, and that's not all of them. So you've got to figure it out. What are small businesses constantly doing? Working on the company. So you've got to figure out what works best for you and your company. If you do care, and you share, and you attract with great campaigns, the last word generate is not a listed item, you'll start to generate return. Don't expect quick returns from social media. It takes time. It takes time. It's about patience. So figure out the right investment for you. But to me, if you're not at least in LinkedIn, you're not doing yourself any good service. Because even though some of you are business to consumer, a lot of home services, personal goods, if you're here, you care about networking. And if you care about networking, LinkedIn is one of your absolute best tools worldwide. Ne ekersen onu bitirsin. This is all about level of effort. Next, please. So what are you going to do in the next 30 days? You have some big concepts. These folks presented some great ideas for you. What are you going to implement to grow your business tomorrow? Next. LinkedIn. I talked about LinkedIn. Here's some very specific things. First is your profile picture. Spend a little bit of time on that profile picture. Make it look interesting. It doesn't have to be perfect. But if you have a business consumer site, show pictures of happy people. If you're selling construction services, show me an awesome picture of your company. Number 2, do you see my shot of my head? It's almost all neck on up. LinkedIn has done extensive research. Professional photos are what most people prefer to get your LinkedIn clicked on. If you have a blank, you're not helping yourself. You can get a very nice photo from a friend of yours that will do the job. Cut out the girlfriends, the boyfriends, and the kids. Okay? Number 3, you may not be able to see this, but that's called the professional headline all the way in the back. It's the phrase that shows up right underneath your name. So when somebody does a search for a company, it's face, name, just like this, and what shows up. That's your value proposition. That's what's going to grab people. That's what's going to get them to click on the link and say, I want to talk to you, instead of the other 9 names that show up on the LinkedIn search. Number 4, updates. Strategically brag. This is the phrase that I use. This is an update that I use. And it's not restricted like YouTube, like Twitter to 140 characters. I don't know the length, but you can tell it's not 140. I posted this up there. Right? So I have this on my homepage, on my blog, and this is what I posted to my LinkedIn update, which I do just about every day. I strategically brag. I put articles, or I'll promote myself about 20% of the time. So what can you do? I know there's a lot of opportunity for you to do LinkedIn. Memorable stories. Gerçek hikayeler. Right? The story. What does story mean in Turkish? Not a great word. Could be a true story, a half maybe true story, or what we call in the U.S. a big fishtail. Or it could be the little kid sitting on someone's lap. I'd like you to turn off your Turkish culture brain. When it comes to telling stories in the U.S., you got to tell them. This is what Americans clamor for. We crave the heartfelt personal story that has a business message. If you want to be remembered, especially those of you that are doing board meetings, investor pitches, anybody here doing investor pitches? Want funding? You want to go to a bank? You want to get money? The first panel is all about money. Tell the founder's story, the problem that you're solving, how you're going to solve it, and why you have invested your personal sweat equity and real money, and you will touch their hearts. It may be the difference between getting the funding and not getting the funding by telling that great story. Now, the thing you got to remember, it's an executive story or a success story or a business story. It's not just a story that you're going to tell just because. It's a very purposeful, deliberate story that has a clear business message. Less than 2 minutes, be interesting, be on message. That's what's important. The success stories. If you're in a business-to-business, success stories, past performance. The last panel, And the previous one was talking about government contracting. If you don't have past performance, they generally don't want to do business with you. Success stories, case studies. Next. New ideas. If you're not reading any of these magazines, I would encourage you. They all have awesome blogs, online sources. Look at what other people are doing that are in your field and not in your field and see what they're doing. More importantly, my suggestion for you on this tip is to read what your customers are reading. Who reads magazines, newsletters, blogs, articles, whatever you want to call it, that your customers like to read? Yeah, like 5 hands. I deal with Fortune 100 companies to small mom and pops around the world. That's the same answers I always get. Because we don't like to read what the customers like to read. We like to read what we like to read. How else are you going to get to know what's inside their head to help make your value proposition and your services resonate with them? There's probably 9 to 10 Granite similar companies that were in this organization. Why should I pick one versus the other? It's going to be the website, it's going to be the value proposition, it's going to be referrals. What do most people do nowadays? They've made the decision before they show up to the store. They've done their homework. That's why LinkedIn is really important. So think about what other people are reading. Next, please. And that leaves me to my 2, while they're tactical, they're big ideas. And if you change your mindset today, you will start to experience different results with how you sell. Focus on the customer, how the customer thinks, and how you're going to change the words that you use, the customer service touch points, all the different things in the message wheel. And how are you going to do that? You're going to spend 25% of your time on sales-related activities. Lots of research out there shows that spending more time, and here's why. Very few of you are big businesses. So that means companies are coming to you because of the executive team, the senior founders, or the people that are out there doing, selling, doing the customer service. Those are usually the executives. Who better to tell your story? Who better to tell the message? It's the executives. If you're not selling, you're hurting yourselves. Grow your business by getting out there at least 25% of the time. Start small. Phone calls, coffees. You can do a coffee in 30 minutes. Lunch is a commitment. Whatever it is, raise your hand, right hand. Raise your hand. I promise to spend more time than today selling and marketing. Thank you for your time.